Hello, all you hardcores out there. How are you doing? It's Russ here from Poker's Corner, biggest gob in sport. Today we're joined by my trusty wingman, Kent, all the way from Ireland. How are you doing, Kent?
I'm all right, Russell. How's it going?
I'm all right, mate. You're looking well. Straight into action then. Beefy Smith against Eubank. Should it have happened? Yes or no?
I'm sick of hearing about all this. I had an injury and took 3 stone off and I done this. Well, last week, Fat Buddy McGirt, come on, and they asked him, "What do you think? How the fight's gonna go?" And he says, "It's not a fight. Look at the last time. It's not a fight." So when they're saying that, when they're talking all week about, yeah, I'm gonna do the same again to you. You've no fundamentals. You didn't listen to Roy. You didn't. I don't want to hear that. He passed the same medical as Eubank Jr. So he needs to shut his mouth.
Do you think
They
Buddy
need to.
McGirt, do you think Buddy McGirt were having a dig at Beefy at Eubank, more or less saying he's shot to bits?
Well, Buddy McGirt's actually bigger, near enough bigger than Bomac. Do you ever see the size of his head?
You know, but what I'm saying, Kent, is do you think that Buddy McGirt were having a pop at Eubank saying that it's a mismatch?
What should he be having a pop at anybody for? This is the guy. This is the guy that this is the guy who trained Derek Chisora for Alexander Usyk and turned around and said, he asked him what did they think of Usyk's style, and he says, I haven't seen him yet. I've just watched Derek sparring. That's enough. I'm like, what? Like, this guy's just walking in there to camps, getting paid probably a fortune,
Hmm.
and he doesn't even watch tapes of opponent. I don't listen to a word Buddy McGirt says about boxing at all, because he just walks in there to camps. Ready-made fighters. I can't stand him. I think he's a terrible coach, to be honest with you. I think
I
he's
think
absolutely terrible.
I think Don Charles gets a bit of stick because he had to pick the pieces up, didn't he, basically, which is Zora after that episode with Buddy McGirt. And I think maybe that's why they felt that Don Charles could have pulled something off with Dubois because he worked with Chisora and he'd have got to pick up bits of this and that about Usyk. But yeah, I see your point on that. Going back to that with Buddy McGirt, Joe McAnally, aka the man with the giant caterpillar eyebrows. They're massive, them aren't they, Kent? Is that they're not? They're not normal eyebrows, them Kent. They're like super eyebrows, aren't they? They're like something that Sean Murphy had wear with his Superman outfit to play snooker at middle at night, weren't they?
Brutal, absolutely brutal.
Do you think they're stuck on Kent then with glue like Eddie's Maury wig?
They could be actually, Russell. They could have reinforced grill grey eyebrows.
Right, what we've been told from Joe McNally, this is what we've been told. Right? Don't forget, there's millions of pounds at stake here, but they're spewing on 45 minutes Sunday sermons, more Monday Mass with boxing news on YouTube. They're spewing saying they were bullied and threatened with legal action and this and that if they didn't fight. But they're more or less insinuating that Callum's behind this. We aren't mentioning his name. But I didn't hear any complaints when George Groves were bullied into fighting Callum Smith when Groves had one arm.
I,
You
I
know?
agree with that there. That
Yeah.
that that is a very good point. In the super tournament or whatever it's called. Basically, Groves was in that fight, taped together. He was basically taped together to go into that fight. His shoulder was an absolute mess. He said basically he went into that fight with absolutely no motivation whatsoever because he knew he was going to get beat. And the first time he got actually hit with a shot, he actually said he actually felt relief because that was his career over. That the injury he got in the Eubank fight, that he finished the Eubank fight with, he obviously tried to postpone, put the fight back to actually prepare properly, but he couldn't. But he couldn't, and that was the completely, what are they talking about? If they're talking about that, well, were they not doing the same thing with George Groves?
Yeah, but there were millions of pounds at stake, and there's no flies on the Smiths in it when it comes to matchmaking and PR. I think, like the Furies, they've got it down to a T. So I've just done a bit of homework. Obviously, I know this off by heart anyway, but I've just tidied it up a little bit. Now the Smiths, if you go through their CV, I'm just going to read you some stats out here, Kent. Right, the Smiths. If you don't count the WBA regular, and you don't count the IBO, which a lot of people don't, the Smiths' record against future world champions, former, current, and future, is Paul Smith Norton 6, Stephen Smith Norton 4, Callum 1-1, and Liam Norton 3. Now, if you count WBA regular champions and IBO champions, you'd have to add Rocky Fielding to that list, Hassan and Dam, an old blown up middleweight that were fed to Callum, and Chris Eubank and Jesse Vargas. So if you add all that up, it comes to 5 wins, 14 losses. Now, listen, we heard the Smiths with the Liverpool Beatles, but you throw that into perspective, and the fact Tony Bellew's not beat a champion, Anthony Fowler got knocked out by got beat by a drug addict, and David Price, heir apparent, has never beat anybody of any note. Now, I thought Liverpool were the hotbed of boxing. Eddie Hill's words, the Iceman.
You just need to go.
Where's this hotbed of boxing? It's just blaggers blagging millions of pounds and pissing on fans from a high height.
You just need to go and look at Liam's world title resume. You look at I remember watching this fight, and it was absolutely terrible. I remember it was on Box Nation. It was on the Billy Joe Saunders, Andy Lee undercard, and he fought for a vacant WBO against John Thompson. The John Thompson, may I add, Russell, the John Thompson, for a vacant WBO light middleweight title, and it was one of the worst opponents I've ever seen. This is a guy that finished his career with 5 losses. It's not exactly credible world title fight. His next defense was Jimmy Kelly, Manchester's Jimmy Kelly. At the time, who wasn't even a domestic level fighter.
Is that him who kept failing eye tests?
Jimmy Kelly, yeah, he's fighting over in America at the minute. So, that's not exactly world. That's not exactly lighting the rankings at world level on fire, putting them on fire at world level and light middleweight. And then he had some Eurobum, Podrick, what I can't even pronounce his name. He's a complete Eurobum. So, that this is the career. They talk about Beefy. Oh, he was a world champion. Beefy's world title credentials are as bad as Tony Bellew's. They're absolutely terrible. There's not a world level win in there. They all talk about Liam Williams. He's not world level either. Nowhere near it.
Best win, isn't it? Liam Williams and Eubank, they're his best wins.
Yeah, Liam Williams is absolutely nowhere near a world level fighter. You look what happened to Liam Williams when he went in with Demetrius Andrade. He literally stood him upside down. And honestly, he absolutely schooled him and put him upside down. So, anytime he stepped up, he did go to distance with Heine Munguia. Many decisions over the last 2 years has Heine Munguia got in his favour that he didn't even win.
Yeah. First time I met Jimmy Kelly over with Dennis, and Dennis goes, "Who's that? Is he a YouTuber or an hardcore?" Because that's Jimmy Kelly. He fought Liam Smith in a world title fight.
He's actually had a couple of good wins.
Dennis didn't even know we were. He goes, "Oh, is that him?" I goes, "Yeah, with double glazing glasses on, Ron."
Yeah, he's actually had a couple of decent wins on the road. So he has in America. He's doing really well. I think he's sitting, waiting it out for a big fight of some sort. But come back to Liam Smith. Who's Liam Smith beat apart from your? Now they're talking, yeah, and they're missing the point here completely. So they're talking about, yeah, we dropped all this weight and we dropped X amount of weight for this fight and we were weak and, you know, I've had a back injury. And what about when Connor, what about Eubank Jr. in the last fight going straight into camp after making that weight cut? They weren't saying that. They weren't exactly, you look at how emaciated Eubank Jr. was making that weight for the Ben fight, then going straight into camp straight away. They weren't complaining about that, were they?
No, they weren't, Kent. They weren't. Another thing as well I want to point out. Why have we got fighters now who have done wrong? Like Dubois, he's quit again, hasn't he? Right? And hang on a minute, but Dubois quit, right? So they wheel out Don Charles, don't they? Right? And then Beefy, we know what Beefy's done. He's come out and he's gone, well, I had to take 3 stone off, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Look, nobody forced him to eat all that food while they were laid up. Should have been disciplined. But they're probably thinking, well, we're going to get paid millions, and there'll be people whispering in their ears, you'll get a trilogy if Eubank wins this, blah, blah, blah. So you're in a win-win. If you lose, you still win because you get paid for losing and you get another bite at cherry pay-per-view because it's 1-1. Or if you win, you're still going to go on anyway and win. So he's in a win-win situation. So they took it for money. Like they took the Canelo fight. Now, Callum Smith's running round and his father, Popeye Smith, they're telling the chosen few, oh, we had to take Canelo fight because we were pushed into it, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's no different. It's only the same sort of carry on, isn't it?
Boxing now, Russell. That's the way it is.
That's the way it is. They shouldn't have to wheel the trainers. Like Don Charles has done that many sermons lately. I thought he was the Pope. And then we've got this Joe McNally, this guy with giant caterpillar eyebrows. He's doing them now, getting the point across and that. Get Beefy on and get him to explain how he's putting himself in a ring not fit for purpose, survival mode only, didn't win a 30-second block of any of them rounds. You've got 10 rounds there, right? And you've got 60 30-second blocks. And is it 6? 1, 2, 3, 6. 60 30-second blocks. He lost every 30-second block of the fight, didn't he? Every single one. Now, how can he put himself in a situation like that on a pay-per-view show? That's embarrassing. That's like Dubois quitting. But they can't come out and face the fans, can they? So they're wheeling out the trainers, aren't they? Well, basically, are just PR guys now. I don't want to see all these trainers doing interviews. We didn't see it with McCracken, and we don't see it with Tony Sims. So why have we got these? Wheeled out every 2 minutes, trainers. Stay out of the camera earshot. I don't want to see trainers. Like I don't want to see strength and condition guys who talk or to waffle as well. I'm raging here, Ken. What do you think?
Well, you need to go back and you look at the last year and a half of Josh Taylor. So Josh Taylor went to Joe McAnally to train him, and he had a problem with his foot. And Joe McAnally came out and said multiple times, there's no way that any of my fighters or any fighter can go in the ring with an injury and not 100%. He said this multiple times. So what's the difference between that and Josh Taylor than that and Beefy Smith? I don't want to hear it, Russell. He should have wired his jaws closed. Nobody made him eat all that food to put on 3 stone. If he's putting on 3 stone while he's got an injury, what's he doing? There's so many things you can do when you're injured. You can swim, you can aqua run, you can stationary bike, even go to the sauna to keep weight off. There's all sorts of things you can do. And, he wasn't saying that when he was running around playing football. So I think they need to shut their mouths. I think Eubank absolutely dominated them and smashed them the way he should have in the first fight. It's probably the first time ever that Junior has ever had a proper camp. He's been away. He's got a guy cooking his food for him. He's done the weight perfectly. He's had great sparring. He's had good coaching. I think it was a career best performance from Eubank Jr. And I think that's what should have happened the first time. You know, it just goes to show you how bad a coach Roy Jones has been. I'm back on the Eubank hype train. I was off it for 2 years because of the whole Roy Jones disaster. I seen the difference in him against Marcus Morrison. It was I said on here, it was a strange performance. He probably is not going to go anywhere fighting like that. And he came out and he absolutely dominated Liam Smith. You know, they had absolutely no respect. You know, if they didn't think they could have won that fight, they would not have taken it. They had no respect for him. They thought the first time was going to be, they thought the first time was so easy. They could have just went and done it again. So I'm sick of hearing about all these excuses about his ankles being rolling his ankles, and they were complaining about the ring, and just get over it. Get over it.
Listen, the Smiths have played the game. Like I've just said, we've just read it out there, haven't we? Right. It's 1-14 against former, current, and future full world champions, or if you want to count regulars in IBO, 5-14. That's the Smith CV. It's hardly the Beatles, is it? It's like the Beatles having a #1 record for 1 week in charts, isn't it? You know what I mean? They won't be classed as all-time greats, the Beatles, and legends, would they? We won #1 hit for 1 week.
Well, you even look at the Beatles separately. You look at all their careers. Separately. You look at Paul McCartney. You look at John Lennon. You look at Ringo. You look at George Harrison. You look at all their careers after the Beatles. How can you compare the Smith brothers
to the
Smiths
Beatles? Are basically the Bay City Rollers, aren't they? A boxing. They're not the Beatles that Bay City Rollers can, or Shawadi Wadi, aren't they?
Probably Shawadi Wadi.
Yeah, they're not the Beatles, mate. So that's how I look at it. And Paul Smith, the old AKA Jim Royal, he can pipe up as much as he wants. Who have the Smiths beaten? Not anything, not achieved what their wage packets have amounted to, have they?
Paul Smith is probably the most miserable man in boxing. Like, miserable. Absolutely the most negative, most miserable, most depressive person in boxing. I just can't watch him at all. He's just so miserable all the time. This is a guy, in his career, he was on Contender, probably one of the very first reality TV programs, boxing wise, in America. Sugar Ray Leonard behind it, massive exposure for him. He did that. He came back to UK. He had a brilliant, he made a lot of money out of boxing. And this is a guy that lost to Steve Bendel for an English title. He got knocked out unconscious.
And then decided it was a super medal because of that.
He had fought Abraham twice, and fought Tyrone Sega. De Gale.
Chance after chance the Smiths have had.
How do you get those fights?
The begging bowl is that, how can you go from Tommy Tolan and Jamie Ambler to Abraham and Ward?
Tyrone Sega, world title, WBA. Honestly, he made a fortune. You look at those fights, and you put all them together, that's a lot of money. And the two Abraham fights away in Germany, that would have been massive money in Germany, massive. And I had that Tyrone Sega fight as well. That would have been big money as well. Andre Ward in America, the most miserable man in boxing. He should be grateful he's had the career he had and the opportunities. There's better fighters out there that hadn't even challenged for a world title, never mind fought them likes and names and been given them opportunities. He's absolutely miserable. No wonder he doesn't work as a pundit in any TV program, because he would literally put you into depression.
Well, what about Callum Smith, aka Mondo, aka Craterface? What's happening with his CV, Ken? What's he done? Apart from put
He's,
millions in bank and let his promoter big him up. He doesn't say a word. He's a human mute. He doesn't say a word, does he, Mundo? Who was he? What has he done? Who's he beat?
he just walked out in Joe. He brought in Fat Buddy McGirt, who again, he's actually near enough bigger than Bomac. Here's his size of Bom. He is near bigger than Bomac.
Yeah.
Can't stand him. Don't like Buddy McGirt one bit. I think he's just stealing a living out of boxing and just walking in there to camps. You know, you look how bad. You know, we all talk about. You know, you look at how bad Dillian White was with him in camp, against Franklin. Absolutely terrible. You know, they were complaining about that Calano fight at the time, and they were pushed into it. They were pushed into that fight that he got millions for in front of about 70,000 people during COVID, when people had no jobs, had no furlough, and had no opportunities. So what's he crying about? He's not living in the real world.
No, yeah. Which brings me to the real world. Right, listen to this one. From the top to the bottom, somebody sent me an email, you're always having a dig. I said, listen, I'm trying to make a change in boxing, let people sit up and let them know what we're dealing with. And hopefully, sports minister might intervene and then government. So we've got border control at the top of the tree. Do we agree? Right,
Yep.
that's run. Border controls run by ex-Crown Prosecution Service QC barristers like John Rees on the board. We've got Roberto Smith, an ex-fighter, on the board. Les Potts, ex-chief of police of Sheffield, and various Freemasons. Right, we've got that shower at the board. And we've got drug testing. That's a joke. Border no control, drug testing's a joke. We know that. We don't need to go down that avenue. TV platforms, right? Who decides at these TV platforms that these fights are pay-per-view? Is there a quality control? Obviously there isn't, because if you can put Froch Booty on non-pay-per-view, but yet you can put Beefy Smith against Eubank on pay-per-view, it's unbelievable, because in both fights, they both had issues with weight, but both said nothing about it and took the fans' money. A bit like David A. and Bellew masquerading as elite fighters when really they were both shot to pieces, and they milked 2 episodes out of it, didn't they? And there were no fake beef there. They were pals all the way through. Then we've got managers and promoters basically doing what they want. Promoters now getting drug test results straight to them, and apparently loading that up at fighters. We're not going to mention no names. We know what we're on about. Then we've got these trainers, right, coming into boxing, setting up Instagram accounts, doing a bit of pad work, and all of a sudden they've got a towel over the shoulder and the trainers are wrapping hands. We've got fighters going, well, we've just seen it, haven't we, with Eubank there. I had to take 3 stone off. I was laid up with a bad back and all that, but, you know, I had to get my pay-per-view in. Then we've got the media, bottleless media. Simon Jordan starts out like a tiger, the Gad and Juggies Oliver going after Ben and Eddie Hearn and all the rest of them, and we're all mesmerised thinking that's brilliant. A couple of months down the line, they're all toothless. They've been softened up, haven't they? Then we've got YouTubers now. We've got that Boxing King Media. He's a serving policeman at South Yorkshire. Isn't that right, Gully? I'm not saying that because I spent over 10 years behind the door. But I'd just like to point out that we've got this guy here going around giving everybody a Monday mass or a Sunday sermon in boxing, especially in South Yorkshire. We've got all that going on. And basically, it's a YouTube free-for-all, isn't it, with nobody wanting to ask proper questions. So from top to bottom, it's a cesspit. Right? And what's the answer? Because I feel like I'm pissing in a hurricane here now. For 6 years I've been doing this. Yeah, certain people are listening, but we're not making any inroads into the structure of it. And what are people doing to get this all right? Now, the small old shows, Ken, they're dying of death, aren't they now? They're dying of death. Well, they're putting people like Dave Allen, who don't even train in with Olympic bronze medalist, probably worst Olympic medalist I've ever seen in my life. He's in the ring 20 clem. Dave Allen's in there 19 clem. And the stronger, faster, quicker than speeding bullets. Everybody from top to bottom has no urgency. Nobody's taking anything serious, are they? What do you think?
Going in on the Fraser Clark Dave Allen fight, that was probably one of the worst fights I have ever seen in TV. I was talking to Richard about it during the week. That was an atrocious fight. Atrocious. Fraser Clark's career is going nowhere whatsoever. If you can't knock out Dave Allen in the first round or second round in that type of condition, with that mindset, you're going absolutely nowhere. Nowhere. I thought it was a terrible fight. I thought Dave didn't throw a punch for 2 rounds and he was
He nearly
knackered.
broke to win, Dave, didn't he?
He was exhausted. At one stage, I actually thought he was trying to get disqualified himself because he was hitting behind the head constantly, rapid punching, double punching, doing these stupid things, constantly crying to the referee. He was looking a way out. Then he quit. 1 minute he points at his shoulder, so his shoulder, and then
jaw.
It was his jaw, but he was talking away and shouting away at Fraser Clark, and now it's a perforated eardrum. He went into the fight, so it was absolutely atrocious fight. Fraser Clark, no urgency about him whatsoever. Fraser Clark actually punches like a straw weight. He has no pop whatsoever. Terrible, absolutely terrible fight. Awful, awful. I don't want to. I've said this before. How did Dave Allen even get a license? This is a guy that was complaining about having head injuries and having trauma from CTE from boxing. How did he even get a license in the first place?
David Price,
Yeah,
when it over 4 years ago.
shocking, absolutely shocking. Then he's come out.
What me, Kent, with that, right, is this. Dave Allen said he was fit, he was sparring hard, right? Now, you've got a guy here, right, who's fighting somebody. He's had 2 points took off, and referee said, any more low blows and you're out of here. And he was still low balling Dave, wasn't he? Right, low punching him. Now, if he's doing that, there's still rounds left in the fight after 6 for Dave to get him out of there on a DQ, isn't there? So why didn't you just summon up some energy to get out for that 7th round because he had no left? Now, if you've only trained for 6 rounds and you were dead after the third, really, wasn't
he? He just looked like a fat slob. His protector wasn't even tucked in. He just didn't want to. He looked like he didn't even want to be there. It's just like, I'm turning up, I'm here, I'm getting paid, and that was it. There was nothing. There was no motivation about him whatsoever. There was no nothing about him in that fight. It was terrible. It was one of the worst fights I've seen on Sky. And you look at that as a pay-per-view card, right? That was a terrible card of boxing. Terrible, absolutely terrible. There was one exciting fight on that. Well, you take away the main event, there was probably only one exciting fight on that undercard, and that was Mark Heffron. And that was probably the only exciting fight on that. The rest of everything else was terrible. And Dennis is coming out now and putting stuff on that we want a rematch, and we want to see us again. Who would want to watch Dave Allen and Fraser Clark again? That was atrocious.
Dennis has not got a chance. But of course he's going to want to do that. Dennis can just take a slice of cake for not having to put his hand in his pocket and put a show on. So of course he's going to want to do that. But Dennis is already shouting off he's got beef with Sky and all this, and about letting Fraser's remarks go out there saying that he's probably been robbing Dave Allen all his life, all his career. And Big Fraser didn't mess about with his comments, did he? So
but Dennis was shaking his hand and palling him up 2 seconds later after he said it. Why? Mad. It was just absolutely disaster. It was terrible. It's not really good for Dennis in Fight Zone. 2 weeks ago, Tommy Frank got wiped out in 1 round. one round by Yafai. Dave Allen, just and probably one of the worst heavyweight fights I've ever seen. It's not good for the Fight Zone brand.
I saw
So
Dave Allen. Sorry. I saw Dennis high-fiving and hugging Juggies and the Gad. I mean, I really know his opinion on them, but why would you do that? I don't get that. It's as two-faced as you can get, isn't it? To stay relevant.
just looked like he was glad to be there at the event.
Well, it was final throw at Custer's last stand, wasn't it, for Big Ron, wasn't it, basically? He's cashed Tommy Frank out to Eddie Hills, and he's just cashed White Rhino out to Ben Shalom. All he's got left to do now is cash Anna Rankin out on a Calla Sowland show, and then he's cashed all his chips in against privileged schoolboys who've got TV deals. Everything that Dennis hates about boxing, privileged people doing what they want, because basically Dennis come from note, didn't he, like his father. But privileged people who have a big say in boxing, he's against that, just like me. But yet he wants to high-five these people and jump in bed with them. What is all that about? Have some self-respect for yourself, Big Ron. You're supposed to be a scrap metal dealer up Sheffield and a big hitter on Sheffield scene, surrounded by all your minders and that. Why don't you just show some knackers? Show morals as well. Sucking up to these people. Embarrassing. And to think I used to look up to Big Ron. And then I see him high-fiving these shithousers. That's everything I'm against, Kent.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Everything I stand for. And I've seen it in front of my eyeballs. Me and my kids watched it. My kids don't understand it, but I fucking do. Big Ron, you're embarrassing. I know you're listening. You're embarrassing. When I see you, I'll tell you straight. Not like everybody else hanging out at back of you, telling you how good looking you are and that your hair looks well. Jesus. Embarrassing. Embarrassing, right? Big John Fury seen out with a woman. Oh my God. Everything I said about Big John Fury, I've got wrong, haven't I? Been seen out with a woman. Hey? I mean,
5 brasses a night.
That's got to be off at back of Netflix, hasn't it? That, I mean, could you imagine him even having a conversation with a woman? A Neanderthal dinosaur like him, man's man, actually talking to a woman. My God, what's going on?
This is the man that camps out in his back garden, lives off the land and that.
Yeah, unless he's on One True Geordie, where he has 3 brasses a night, 3 bottles of Jack Daniels, and big bags of drugs. Apparently he's a bit of a Mick Jagger on a weekend, Charlie Sheen job.
100 no on the hard road.
Yeah. Felix Cash, I'm hearing's left the Sims gym, and he's left Matchroom, and he's jumped in with Calla, and he's working with Pat Barrett in Manchester. So is that a good move for Felix Cash, if that's true?
That's a brilliant move. Like I get rinsed on here 2 years ago when I said that I thought Felix Cash was probably the best middleweight in the UK at the time. That was ahead of Bentley and Eubank Jr. I like his style. He's exciting. He can really punch.
Yeah.
And I was looking forward to seeing this career evolve. And he's had so many fights cancelled. He's pulled out of so many fights. Behind the scenes, you don't know what's going on. But that's really good for him. And the thing about it is, he's going to Calla now. So he's putting on shows on Channel 5 on terrestrial TV. He's going to get a lot of exposure. It's going to help him build his own brand and build his name on terrestrial TV. Pat Barrett doesn't take any crap. So I think it's a win-win for Wasserman. It's a brilliant signing for Wasserman. And it's really good for him that he's up training Manchester with Pat Barrett.
Well, nobody's saying they've signed for him yet. All I'm trying to piece it together. All they're saying is he's working with Pat Barrett, and there's a fallout with Eddie Hill. So I'm assuming Pat Barrett, Wasserman, Channel 5, because they're using Lyndon Arthur. He's going to be face a bit now, anyway, because he's got a world title belt, and Lyndon Arthur. Pat's
Yeah.
like arrived on scene now as a top trainer, and so piecing it together. You know, that's what the word is. So I think it's a good move. I've got no time for Callum. I've got no time for Ben Shalom. I've got no time for Eddie Hearn. Right? They're all privately educated, rich kids who want to hang around on the boxing scene, making out the tough guys. When, if the truth be known, if they ever had it put on them, either on the hard road or on a landing in prison, the menu would read like apple crumble with plenty watered down prison custard. That's what it'd be. They won't be able to handle it. So they're not tough guys. They just want to be known as these tough guys. But if the truth be known, all three of them are shithouses. That's the bottom line. Shithouses, as Cluffy would say. Oh, you shithouse.
They're upper privileged people
Yeah.
coming into a working class sport and profiteering from it.
Yeah. Let's have a look. 36 minutes, 4 minutes. Craig Richards. People keep emailing me saying, Craig Richards, Porky, is he serving a silent man? I don't know. I like Craig Richards. I hope not. But nothing surprises me in boxing. But at the moment, I don't know about that. And they're asking me if Felix Cash is. I don't know. But with what's going on with all this testing and that, anything is possible. But like I said, I don't know, so I can't comment on that.
I remember I listened to Big Malk the other night there
Big
after the
Mal.
Eubank fight. Big Malk. So I listened to Tunde and Big Malk after the fight the other night. And basically they were just saying about what's Eubank going to do with his career, you know, what's going to happen, and, you know, what do you think? I think it was a live, and basically people were putting in saying, you know, is Billy Joe Saunders coming back? Is, you know, him and Eubank would be a big fight. But basically Big Malk said that there's no way that Billy Joe could, you know, he's a light, if he gets back to light heavyweight, he's lucky. And there was a possibility. Tunde had said that there could be, you know, Spider could be fighting Billy Joe Saunders, and that would be a good fight. I don't know if there's any truth in that. They said that on the live the other night,
You
but that
don't
would be a good
seriously
fight.
think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to come back and go in with Craig Richards at Craig Richards' weight, at a weight that's alien to him, in his comeback fight after nearly 3 years out? I don't believe that, do you, Ken? Well, it's 2.5 years out, isn't he, in a couple of months?
To be honest with you, Russell, I don't think he's going to get down to the super middleweight ever again, or middleweight. So if he's going to come back, it will be light heavyweight. Now, I remember he fought Charles Damu a couple of years ago. He was basically a light heavyweight in that fight, and he was carrying. So if I see him coming back, I do see him coming back as a light heavyweight. I can't see him making super middleweight or middleweight again. There's not a chance of it.
All right. Right, you want to click on to part 2, Ken?
Yeah.